So what about policing? So I'm going to spend the next 5 minutes just talking a bit about policing. I'm sure many in the room are aware of this stuff already. It really got going, I guess, in policing relatively early on. So 1998, this piece by Lawrence Sherman, who says of all the ideas in policing, one stands out as the most powerful. Police practice should be based on scientific evidence about what works. More complete evidence of the linkage between research and practice suggests a new paradigm for police, blah, 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 say to evidence-based crime prevention. And he went and he did write about this stuff earlier, just talking about what any police officer should know about this stuff, okay? Now, it's interesting about it because I really wish this had got going in management, in 1998. It's still now trying to persuade managers, HR managers to even think about this stuff. So it's kind of interesting. It's much more evolved in this kind of field. Again, the College of Policing sort of talks about evidence-based policing, but again, it's quite interesting. Their definition doesn't emphasize those other areas. It focuses very much on just maybe organisational data and scientific evidence, not the other stuff so much in their definition. The College of Police talks about that, and they have this stuff, this what works stuff, and again, there's nothing like this in management, which makes me a bit jealous that at least that stuff's there, so you can actually look at the evidence, systematic reviews about kind of what works and what doesn't. Police Foundation, Centre for Evidence-Based Policing now being turned into a limited company. I have to ask someone about that later. Canadian Society, so it's around, American societies, it's around, etc., etc., etc. It's going on, in other words, and the Matrix and so on, which I guess some of you also feel. These are areas where there's good evidence for things. Now, to me, this is a bit back to front in terms of evidence-based practice. You don't start off saying, where's the really good evidence and let's do that thing. You start off saying, what's the problem? So it's kind of a mistake to say, oh, we know lots and lots about that, so let's just do that thing. It's a bit like going to the GP and saying, I don't know what's wrong with me, but what works in medicine? Just give me some of that. It's completely the wrong way around. It's useful to know in terms of gaps, but this shouldn't drive what you do. What should drive what you do is the problem, in a sense. So how evidence-based is policing? Is it well known? I'd say so. Do you have research findings, systematic reviews accessible? Yeah, to some extent, I guess through the College of Policing website and other things. Are articles reporting prime research and traditional reviews? I'm not sure they are. I mean, they are accessible to some people, but probably not a lot of people in the profession. Is there this sort of skepticism about cutting-edge practices? Maybe, to some extent, within policing. This is a really hard one. Is there a demand for evidence-based practice from the practitioners, in this case, the police's clients and customers? In this case, including politicians. And this is one of the really hard things. If you're an evidence-based practitioner in any field, if your client or customer actually doesn't want you to do what is effective, then it's really hard to be evidence-based. An example, going back to the GP example, is that for sort of for a long time, people would go into the GP demanding a prescription for something. And so doctors, as you know, used to just give out lots and lots of prescriptions for antibiotics. Now, doctors could even say, look, this isn't going to work, it isn't going to, but they still demand it, they still get giving it to maintain the relationship. And you could argue this is exactly what happens in policing and other areas. If a politician says do this, you can kind of argue back up to a point, but in the end, if they don't want that, you'll just have to do what they're telling you. So it's a real challenge, I think, for any profession, including policing. Are practitioners integrative? I don't really know about that. I think to some extent they are. And one thing that's very important is initial training and CPD about evidence-based approach. I'm not so sure. Because to me, if you're training police officers, the first thing you should tell them in the first class they do at police colleges, you should teach them about cognitive biases. That should be the first lesson. And as far as I'm aware, that certainly doesn't happen in the UK. And you should teach them about making decisions, because that's what they're going to have to do the whole time in their job. Assess situations, think about decisions, evaluate evidence. So they're the real skills you should be teaching, I think, very fundamentally. I'm not sure it happens.